What I mentioned before when you said it was snowing in New York, why is it that 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 has always been the place you call home, even though it seems to have always it seems to be a really different city than it was maybe even 20 years ago.
True.
What do you see when you see New York physically, and then why is it you still love calling it home?
I see a beautiful city that's getting taller and taller. It's got a lot of jackhammers. It's abrasive more than ever by a lot. The word went out about 10 years ago. We got to clean all the buildings and all the facades. There's so many jackhammers. There's so many scaffolds cleaning the buildings. All the bricks seem to need fixing of the grouts between the bricks. It's tremendously reconstructed now. It's awful. I'm here because I love my wife. She loves New York.
Well, I wonder too if the idea of gentrification starves the beehive of creativity in a lot of these cities.
No, no, no. It seems to pull a lot of good people. It's stimulating. I have many dinners with people in New York that I could never have in the country. So it's a turned-on place. It's electric. It still pulls a lot of good artists and thinking people. When you have a dinner in New York, the conversation's cool. The things they talk about they wake you up. You don't get that in Albany.
Well, it's one of those things. I grew up in upstate initially in Plattsburgh, Lake Placid area.
That's really quiet, so you know about peace and quiet.
Yeah, but I'll definitely agree with you on the fact that every time I'm in New York, there's just this buzz. You can just feel it. You get like chills in your body when you just see how alive the city is.
But the word abrasive is very appropriate. I think all these damn jackhammers. It's very tough. I often say to my wife, "You sure we have to be New Yorkers?" My kid, I have a 12-year-old. He's going to a great school in New York. It's right next to our apartment. So that's very important. You have kids, Garrett?
I do not, but my sister has a niece, or I have a niece that my sister has a daughter. So it's been really interesting just to watch her grow up in this era.
Oh, your phone blipped out for a moment. It's very interesting just to what?
It's very interesting to watch her grow up in this modern era, to see what she sees and what she's around.
And she means a lot to you, right? Doesn't it really swell your heart to be with her?
It's almost, especially like for my dad being a grandpa now, it's kind of weird to see how much his attitude has like softened, I guess. It's surreal. It's almost hard to grasp sometimes, the idea of like immediately being so caring and loving towards this person you just met, It
really is a big part of life, these kids, and my little guy, Beau, Beau, is so important to us that I follow his lead. If he's getting good schooling now that he's in the 6th grade, I follow his lead. That's very important. The school is great, and he's growing great.
What surprised you most about getting older? I mean, I know you have a young kid too, but
how young it feels.
Yeah.
When I was young, I'm 76. I would never give out my age in the old days. Nowadays, everybody knows everything, so I know you'll have no trouble putting my name and then parenthesis my age afterward. I have to make peace with that. But this age, 76, used to be old when I was young. What's surprising to me is it ain't that old. You still burn with the fun of your work.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to coming to San Diego with a youth you would never believe.
Well, it's one of those things where...
Did I say San Diego when I meant Asheville?
Yeah, you're all good.
Sorry. Sorry. I love your part of the world. I'm looking forward to coming there. I love my shows. I burn with the fun of being on stage like never before.
Well, I was wondering, too, with the shows, since you've gotten your voice back...
At the end of that question, you asked such an interesting question.
Well,
what surprises you? Okay, let's move on.
Well, no, I guess I would like to add to that, though, with the idea of getting older. How do you view the idea of time? Do you look at it as one moment, or as a string of moments, or is it cylindrical or linear? Or...
To me, that's too abstract, that question. It's tough to answer. It's very theoretical and very large, that question. How do I view time? I don't know how to answer that. It's too big.
Well, what about, do you think about time, about, the idea of how everything led to where you stand today and decisions made and the people that surround you now? And is it a little too much?
Garrett, I don't know how to answer that one either. It's a little abstract. I thought you were in trouble as soon as you got to the first half of the sentence. How do I view time? I started thinking, I'm not going to be able to go anywhere with this. How do you view life, Garrett? It's a tough question, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, my father turned 76 last week. And to me, it's been fascinating to see someone that's always been physically and emotionally strong, who still is physically and emotionally strong, but watching how his body and mind is not only evolving, but how certain things remain the same and certain things change.
It's kind of youngish, isn't it?
Yeah.
Aren't you surprised to see that he's cooking along at 76, almost like it's 56?
Well, it's crazy to me is that... like you said before, I remember when I was really young, my grandparents being in their 70s and thinking, man, that seems so far away. And now that he's up there, it slips
in on you. You don't really see it as decrepit at all.
No, not at all.
I made an album called Bookends. In Bookends, I sing, how terribly strange to be 70. Well, 7 years ago, I turned 70. It wasn't terribly strange at all. It was invisible. I slid right through it, thank you, God. I'm looking up. Then came 71, 72, effortless. What a surprise. 73, 74. Then came 75, Garrett. You start putting your socks on in the morning and you bend down and you reach, and that starts really noticing. You realize this isn't tougher than it used to be. 75, 76, now age begins to check in. Your memory does slip away. The specifics of things are not so available to your mind.
Well, I will say to that too, the baby boomer generation has always had a youthful exuberance to it.
Thank you. I'll take the compliment. Yeah, we're the Beatles age.
Well,
it's a fabulous generation.
Well, and with that generation, I mean, you were in the spotlight in the midst of a very tumultuous time in this country. Do you not only see similarities to where we are today, or do you see it as like a nothing's the same, everything's the same in terms of like the societal themes?
Tough question. That's very big. In the middle of your question, I was going to say, no, we had it better. It was more joyous. It was less cynical in my age. There was less cynicism. Oh, I just said that. See what I mean? There's a case. You can't compare this to the 60s. It was fabulous in the 60s. It really was. There was the sense of busting out of the boring 50s, the Eisenhower era of tract houses. But I'll say Asheville has always been a great answer to people like me. It's a very cool part of America.
Yeah.
And I believe it still is.
It is, very much so.
So maybe you wouldn't know that things changed. It got more constricted, I believe. I wouldn't compare today with all of its bullshit to the 60s, which was exciting. I often say, in the 60s, we opened our shirts. We jumped in the ocean and swam more. It was a busting out of the spirit. It was kind of a release from how same, S-A-M-E, the 50s were. We really got more creative in our private lives. It's a wonderful period. The Beatles may have led the way, but we were right with them.
Are you optimistic about the future?
Yes, because life is a surprise. And a surprise means you never know. And this means it's up to you to make the future. How do you feel about it, Mr. Garfunkel? Well, I have to believe when I go on stage, here comes my best show that I ever did. And I do. I go on stage with a tremendous youthful feeling of, here comes a surprise to me and everyone. This show is going to be my best. that's optimism about the future. If that's me, then why would the whole rest of the country be any different from me? There's the spirit of the age.
Well, it's one of those